And the reason I say AI creative director, I think Anne mentioned this earlier, that she had to learn how to really dial it in. If you just kind of throw a loose phrase in, it doesn't perform very well. But we're seeing a lot of people learning how to exactly use it, and then they pull it out of the tool, and then they improve upon it.
Synthedia.
I asked an AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting on this presentation. I asked GPT-3, which is a text AI, to write the headline for me. I said, write me a keynote speech headline that's about people's fears of technology and how we can get them kind of moving in the right direction. And it wrote the Luddites' Guide to the Future. I think that's pretty astute. That's pretty good. I then went ahead and I said, okay, I'm doing a talk about the Luddites' Guide to the Future, our fears of technology. And I said, okay, GPT-3, write me the beginning to a keynote speech about the history of Luddites and where they came from and where they've been and where they're going. And that took me only a few seconds to write that prompt. I got a great script back. I dropped it into a synthetic being platform, and it produced this video for me.
Luddites have been around for centuries. They were originally weavers in England who destroyed looms in the early 1800s because they were afraid of losing their jobs to machines. The term Luddite is now used to describe anyone who opposes technology or change. In the early 21st century, the Luddites were people who were afraid of losing their jobs to computers and automation. They were afraid of the future and what it might bring. Today, the Luddites are still around. They're the people who are afraid of self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, and anything else that might make their jobs obsolete.
So I pulled that right out of GPT-3. It's a little strange.
Of course,
to have,
the bot, the king of the bots, said Luddites are people who don't like self-driving cars.
Of course. There's something a little creepy.
Its own existence.
Yeah, there's something a little creepy about an AI-powered script in a synthetic being body kind of scolding humanity for being scared of technology, but it's for good purpose in driving this conversation. So, over the course of today, we talked about all these different technologies and Skilled Creative, which is a conversational AI agency, and we're inside of Journey, which is a broader emerging technology agency. We're a creative agency. So we've got technologists and creative, and we use creative tools. So we look at this and we say, my God, this is a whole new menu of exciting creative tools that we can use. How do we dig into this? Where do we find the good? So, people being fearful of technology is not new. There's a phrase for it, technopanic. It sounds like a really good band, but it's been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years, back to 400 BC, when people thought that literally writing was going to dull people's memories. You flash forward to 1700s, newspapers were going to cause social isolation. That we look back at that and we say that's crazy talk. 1820s, trains were going to create a vacuum that tore people's bodies apart, and we wouldn't be able to exist with trains. Telephones were going to crush interpersonal relationships. Agricultural mechanism was going to destroy humanity, but it actually ended up being great for the educational system. And so there's always this innate fear of technology, and I love this narrative at the bottom to at least talk about, of a quote around Conrad Gessner's thoughts of our modern world overwhelmed people with data, and this overabundance is both confusing and harmful. Now that sounds like a quote you might have expected to occur in the last couple of years, but this new wave of kind of AI and data. But this is from 1565. So this is nothing new. This is something that people have always kind of had in us biologically. And what we end up finding out is it's not as scary as you might think it is. And so this is an interesting study we found from 2015. There was a study and they said that 50% of the Fortune 500 companies will be off the Fortune 500 list by 2020, which is 2 years ago, obviously, because they haven't caught up with emerging tech. Almost all of those companies are still on the list. And what that speaks to is a general perception that's this quote that everybody uses, and Bill Gates uses it, of we tend to overestimate the impact of technology in the very short term, which causes fear. And we underestimate the effect in the long run. So everyone talking today is talking to you about their technology, but what they're really talking about is the infrastructure they're building for their technology. And that infrastructure is going to be the roadmap to the future. In the short term, there is impact, but it's not as impactful as people that are fearful of it might think. And so we say, okay, well, it's not that scary. And something we should also take to heart is that AI, no matter how advanced it is not going to replicate the spark of human ingenuity. So all the images in this presentation are created on Midjourney. They're all AI derived. And this is not some original artwork. This is every garden ever produced, every flower ever produced, every backyard, every alley, every regional image. And the AI is replicating it at some scale. But you're never going to replicate that true kind of human spark that we don't know where it comes from. So we're safe knowing that new things generally will be produced by us. But if we look at our existing media landscape, movies, music scores, advertising copy follow a formula. There's very little out there in the art world that is truly, truly new, but when a true creative comes along, it's recognized. So we'll continue to use these AI tools for other creative areas. Now, AI won't replicate the spark of human ingenuity, but what it can do is a handful of different things. It can create discovery and a spark of excitement. So a lot of people talk today about the access that these tools give everyone. You can create art in 10 seconds. You can write scripting in 20 seconds. You can create a video produced in under a minute or two. And so think about the scale of the community that you can build of new creators, not just people that are currently categorized as creators when you unleash these tools. So you're going to create this wave of new creativity, which is really exciting. And to see the excitement of that creative, but also just seeing people enter a creative field. They might have a 9-to-5 job. They might be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it may be. And they now can kind of dip their toe in the creativity through these tools. It's very exciting. And AI is also going to buy us back our time. We can be faster. We can be more diverse in thought. So I can throw a concept into Midjourney or GPT-3, and in less time than I might outline a couple ideas, it will have printed out for me mood boards and sample copy and scripts and inspiration, and I can use that to leap me forward. We've heard from some partners that they're developing code 3 to 5 times as fast using GPT-3. The same thing across copy and visual design. So these tools are going to speed us up and let us be better creators. It's also going to allow us to be editors and look at creative from an editor's perspective. So everybody who's still in this event, we're somehow associated with the creative field, and you know the process, right? You have a beautiful creative idea, you get a little bit in the weeds on it, and you can lose that original perspective. So by dropping your inspiration into an AI tool, you can actually have a lot of creative printed out for you, created for you in that AI tool. And then you can come in almost as like a senior editor of your own creative inspiration and keep that fresh lens and drive your creative forward. So it's a really beautiful way for people to kind of have like a creative out-of-body experience, and also a way to frankly break through creative blocks. If you can't think of that next little nuance, use an AI tool, get some inspiration dropped in, edit it, move it forward, pull it out of the AI, put it into your tools, and expand it. So it's a really phenomenal opportunity for an editor's perspective. Also, just the sheer fact that delegation is powerful. I mean, everybody who's here, if you've started a business, if you've been in a company, even in your personal lives, the second that you're able to delegate any task in your life, and you can pull that out of your consciousness and you can hand it off to somebody else, it's a really powerful level up for you as a person or in your business. And to think about delegating some of these tasks to your AI tools is a really powerful creation tool, and really levels you up in your ability to move faster and bigger and at scale. It's an exciting proposition. So these are a lot of the positives, and I'm moving quickly, but as an agency, we're starting to use all of these creative tools, and we're seeing the power of not depending on them, but leveraging them in some really exciting way. And this is kind of one of my, put it on the board things. If this year's big title, and in our agency, we have an incredible chief metaverse officer. Chief metaverse officer is one of those titles that have kind of sprung forward in 2022. I think that AI creative director is going to be one of the job titles for next year when these tools continue to scale, whether it's synthetic beans or synthetic copy or visuals. So it's a really exciting time. And as I said, Skilled Creative is a conversational AI agency inside of Journey, which is a broader emerging tech future of the consumer journey agency. And we're using these tools. We're using them already every single day, and we're looking for ways to bring our clients into it. It's a really exciting time. So really wonderful to see all the presenters talk about what they've done. And that's it. We're Skilled Creative. You can reach out, but Brett, let's chat about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit on a lot of the key topics here. I'm particularly interested in the fact that you as a creative agency are starting to use these tools. And I think you started using them internally first, and now you're actually starting to use them with your clients. And I started off with this conversation around one of these 4 themes, and one is hyper creation.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this idea that like you can create mood boards in just a few seconds, things like that. One of the things that really fascinates me is this efficiency doesn't just necessarily save you time, but it gives you more choice. You can get exposed to ideas. You talked about writer's block or creative block. It might give you ideas that you never would have considered before. And so this idea of editing and curation becomes that much more important.
Yeah, I mean, we whenever we can, if we're doing brainstorming sessions for clients, one of the best things that we can do is we fill a room with different types of creatives, different brains, different backgrounds, and you come from different lines of thought. And that's where really exciting concepts come out from a creative brainstorm. And so to introduce AI into the fold and say, okay, like we've got our human brains, let's add those AI brains in. And it really exponentially grows the perspectives that you can start creating from. And it's ironic, but the fact that you're using AI that feeds off of existing data, but it's actually going to drive new ideas for your team is a really exciting proposition. And you're right, we've started using it internally, but we've now started that we're building some thoughts around how to leverage it, putting it out to clients and saying, we could really use this in a really exciting way for you, or we should deploy a campaign around this, or we could leverage it, or we could connect it to what we're doing with you. And everybody's very excited about that prospect. Nobody has said, no, we don't want to have this conversation.
Right. Okay. So you work with a lot of brands and you work with a lot of media companies. Let's start with media companies. And you think about synthetic media, some of the technologies you just talked about. How do you think that's going to change their business over the next few years? We recognize that maybe the Fortune 500 isn't going away in 3 years, but it's still going to change their business.
I think that there's internal change and then there's external change, right? I think that the biggest thing that'll slow Fortune 500s into really adopting this at scale is going to be, regulatory rights, licenses, access, things of that nature. But, our agency and then other agencies, people are using Midjourney for mood boards. People are using GPT-3 to kind of stir up creative. So internally, I think that you'll see every time we expose these technologies to someone, they start adapting it and they start getting really excited about it. So I think you'll see internally product innovation teams designing products and packaging and retail experiences and visual design using these visual tools. I think you'll see product teams who are on like the marketing side start to use them for copywriting and scripting and different elements of that. And then I think it'll be exposed for the next few years in that some of those tools will just be used for production. But what I think is going to happen in the short term is you'll start to see people not just leverage the tools, but use the tools as a marketing narrative, right? So to say, not only did we use this AI production tool to inspire this new product or packaging, but we're going to market the fact that this was AI generated and it was then handed to our designers and they made it perfect and they put that human ingenuity into it. So it's going to be used, but it's also going to be leveraged as a narrative. And then once we find scale and that infrastructure really hits, then we're off to the races. But it's a combination of AI and human collaboration.
That reminds me of Heinz's campaign just recently, where they basically used DALL-E and they tried to get ketchup bottle, and it kept bringing up Heinz ketchup bottles basically in different formats.
It's wonky, and then that's kind of the fun right now. It's wonky. You shouldn't depend on it too much, but it's a powerful, inspirational tool.
That's right. Well, I think from the media space, one of the things I've been really interested in is, and I think particularly people who are creating media, that the AI technologies that we've just been talking about, the synthetic media technologies we've been talking about, have been a feature, or they've been a productivity tool. So you just mentioned the productivity tool, you get ideas, you move more quickly. than you would have otherwise. Maybe you get new ideas you wouldn't have otherwise. And then, or they're doing some sort of touch up. They're resurrecting someone who's an actor who has passed away, but they wanted to maintain that actor for another episode of the series, or they're de-aging the voice or something like that.
Mhm.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are and when synthetic media might become more core, and it might be the other things are the features, like the human touch, like you were just talking about, like the ad copy, or the ad is mostly AI and the humans just touch it up. The humans are the feature, because right now we think of the AI as the feature and the humans as central.
I think it's hard to put kind of a time estimate on it, but you look at what Soul Machines is doing, and you look at what a company like InWorld is doing, and you look at some of the other Respeecher and Resemble and these synthetic being companies combined with some of these production tools. It's pretty fascinating what you can do now. I think the gaming industry, I think the movie industry, I think commercials, that kind of agency world is going to start using them pretty quickly. And the reason I say AI creative director, I think Anne mentioned this earlier, that she had to learn how to really dial it in. If you just kind of throw a loose phrase in, it doesn't perform very well. But we're seeing a lot of people learning how to exactly use it, and then they pull it out of the tool and then they improve upon it. So we don't have time to go through it, but there's a lot of studies that show humans still outperform AI in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
But when you combine humans and AI, it's off the charts, the precision and the efficiency and what you can produce. So I'm not really answering your question necessarily, but I think long term, you'll probably see a large portion of kind of pre-work and production happening where humans become the editors to that, and then the finishers and
I think, yeah.
creative directors.
And that sounds like the idea of them becoming the features,
Yeah.
humans being the feature in the process. The core is the synthetic media generation. And I did
Yeah.
want to touch on one more point with you, because you've been in the conversational AI, the voice AI industry for a number of years. And,
Mhm.
some people in that space don't really see the overlap between these technologies. Now, I think there's like a clear one that most people would find unambiguous. Synthetic speech engines, whether they be text to speech or speech to speech, are using technologies which everyone in this industry or in the conversational AI industry would be familiar with.
Yeah.
And then you can think about what Soul Machines was just talking about, the conversational, autonomous, virtual humans, digital people. Obviously, there's something there, but it seems like this is an industry which will get a lot of benefit out of the people who are doing AI development, the people who are
Yeah.
doing conversational user experience design, and other types of features. It's almost like an expansion opportunity for anybody who's been in conversational AI for a while.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I kind of made a hard and fast rule at Skilled going back a couple of years that we were only going to expand in the technologies that touched on conversational AI. And so, in our broader agency now, we have different studios to do that. But when NFTs came around, a couple of years ago, we looked at it, we said, exciting. We're not going to personally work on it in a million other fields that we've reviewed. And so we keep bolting on conversational AI services to our agency. In virtual beings and synthetic beings, when we saw that, it just hit, right? It's the visual personification of what we've been doing for almost a decade, which is create these virtual assistants. And all the data right now that's coming out of studies, largely done by the synthetic being companies. So,
Sure.
you have to take that with a grain of salt. But the data is showing that people respond a little better when there's a face on it and when you can kind of watch it. So we're starting to kind of use that visual representation to extend the work that we're doing. And then when you add GPT-3 into the conversation, or Amazon's new tool, or Google's new tool, you now can connect your conversational AI to a script creation tool, which creates an infinite scale to the conversations you can have. There's a company called InWorld that's doing some really exciting work around neural networks connected to conversational AI and synthetic beings. And then on the visual AI piece, that's part in Journey, just a general emerging tech that we're excited about as a creative tool. But I've said this a couple of times. I think that's a conversational AI. It's text to visual
Sure.
design,
Absolutely.
right? And so it's an extension of what we do. And we're even looking at how do you connect that to voice? How do you let people have a vocal conversation, and then that is auto-generating visual designs? So we're dabbling in how to get that out.
What
So
would be
everything we
amazing
talked about today.
is that as the image is generated, if it left the mic open, you could say no, more red,
Yep.
or make it surrealist or something like that, and just like, you know, and it still has to run through the neural networks. You're still going to be waiting in most of these things at least 60 seconds to get something back.
Yeah.
But again, just that idea that you wouldn't have to go back to the keyboard, which is like the thought comes to you, and you enter that, and it starts to run it. And you get sort of that full duplex interaction with the AI system, which seems inevitable to me.
I agree. We've been doing a lot of fun work with like voice activated websites with if you're in the voice space, you know, Speechly. And the beauty of a Speechly is that you're talking to a website, e-commerce, you're live filtering, you know, show
Right.
me white jeans in a size medium, you know, that are on sale, that are above $20, whatever it is. And you can hit that mic or leave that mic open, and you're just constantly filtering. So to be an AI creative director, leave your mic open and just be kind of hands-free directing. It's a fun prospect. And so we're dabbling with how to get that working correctly. So it's an extension.
Absolutely. Okay, Brandon Kaplan, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your presentation today. The Luddites are around. I think that the fear is generally well ahead of the evidence that it's going to be there, but that's okay, because we set up policies so that we protect against some of these issues. And you know what, it's really hard to stop new technology from infiltrating. And we just think about what, like, deepfake technology had such a bad reputation even a few weeks ago, but let's say a year ago, and now we're seeing all of this use in Hollywood and the entertainment industry, and we're seeing some of it even in things to improve quality of life for people with disabilities. And we're going to see all these technologies adopt really, really quickly. It's so pervasive. Hans Spalter even said, it's like a year ago, like people didn't know what I was talking about. Now I mentioned that I used an image generation tool, and they're like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, of course I know what that is. And so I don't think that's general awareness, you know, in terms of all of these different applications, but everybody's getting exposed to these things now. And it's one of those things where once they're exposed, they have a good experience with it, whether it's on America's Got Talent or in Hans Spalter's collection of AI artwork, or an ad campaign with Heinz ketchup. Then all of a sudden it becomes mainstream, and everybody says, this is great. The Luddites, we don't have to worry about them breaking the looms anymore. Let's just move forward.
We're here. Let's move forward.
Synthedia. Synthedia.substack.com. Synthetic media, virtual humans, voice clones, deepfakes, AI image and text generation, news, and more.
Hey, thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to help us with YouTube's famed algorithm.